Gold and silver actually, gold did better. Just gold did better in that. It dipped and then just shrugged it off and went up because there's central banker buyers. And more, I think some element of gold will play some role in some future portfolio of some backing of basket of currencies. I don't think there's any one nation state that gets to be the nation state currency of it all when the USD has its final unhinging moment. And it's the debt. The debt is the key thing. It's all about the debt. You spend twice what you get in. You've got 7 trillion to roll. And what's actually happened that I should have said almost first is that the Fed did 100 basis points of cuts and the US 10-year went 100 basis points up. That is a divergence, which was a shoe drop moment that we've been warning of in many of our videos for the last 3-4 years.
In the United States, the Congressional Budget Office forecasts that the debt-to-GDP ratio will exceed 150% by 2034, up from 98% at present. This will slingshot the nation's debt to the highest levels in U.S. history. To quote analysts at GSC Commodity Intelligence, the next 10 years will be known as the decade of debt. Interestingly, a historically strong correlation exists between U.S. debt and gold prices. Conclusive evidence shows that when the U.S. national debt ballooned from $5 trillion to $35 trillion, gold prices rose by 10 times since 2000. That's a whopping gain of over 826% since the beginning of the century. If history repeats itself, gold prices could reach $5,000 an ounce when U.S. debt hits the $70 trillion mark. Renowned analyst FrancisHunt warns of a potential economic downturn, highlighting gold's role as a crucial hedge against uncertainty. FrancisHunt warns of a financial crisis driven by government overspending and mounting rollover risks. From a technical perspective, Hunt predicts gold will briefly dip during financial turmoil, but rebound strongly, driven by central bank demand and a role in future reserve currencies. He foresees a U.S. housing market collapse amplifying the crisis, pushing investors toward gold as a safe haven. Developing countries susceptible to these risks are increasingly turning to gold as a hedge against financial uncertainty and diversifying their reserves away from dollar-denominated assets. Concurrently, FrancisHunt criticizes the U.S. debt system, describing it as a vampire draining the economy. Hunt foresees a potential revaluation of gold as part of a new currency system following economic turmoil and societal unrest. Gold researcher Jan Nieuwenhuis has noted for months that many governments and central banks recognize the money creation potential of gold revaluation and provide for it explicitly with gold revaluation accounts. In 2012, U.S. economists Paul Brodsky and Lee Quaintance described the potential of gold revaluation. Now we present clips of FrancisHunt's insights from his recent interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
I'm thinking there's a debt-based, financial-based, which could be masked with a geopolitical event that's coming for markets as a whole. The stock markets, the housing market, I think is closest to falling because commercial is getting an absolute paraba and escalating amount of commercial loans. That's, I think, less liquidity is going to be provided for purchasing of homes at current pricing. I think it'll be more expensive. It'll be higher, bigger deposits will be demanded. So they are going to start pulling that in. I think that crashes the US housing market, and that could start to see, people layoffs and things. So they tend to flush everything out, and then they'll get a big pump again. Then we'll see gold going up again. But first, I think it dips in this event of a crash. And I remind people that were very dominantly in crypto that before making the 64K, which ended in a 69K high, they had to have this 19 flush out that took 10K right down to 4,000. And gold and silver actually, gold did better. Let me say just gold did better in that. It dipped and then just shrugged it off and went up because there's central banker buyers. And more, I think some element of gold will play some role in some future portfolio of some backing of basket of currencies. I don't think there's any one nation state that gets to be the nation state currency of it all when the USD has its final unhinging moment. And it's the debt. The debt is the key thing. The debt. It's all about the debt. You spend twice what you get in. You've got 7 trillion to roll. And what's actually happened that I should have said almost first is that the Fed did 100 basis points of cuts and the US 10-year went 100 basis points up. That is a divergence, which was a shoe drop moment. The key moment is when what the Fed does not have an effect in the actual debt markets itself. America has the highest payment to the banking cartel for being given the privilege of borrowing your money into existence. So when you combine the total debt and the interest rate, the vampire is sucking the blood out of the American body at such an unbelievable rate. And that's nothing to be celebrated. And the knock-on effects to the currency is pretty poor. And the central banks have lost control because what they do is not being reflected in the market. The market is freeing itself of their incumbents and is starting to price itself. And by the way, for gold and silver owners, that's a great thing, because they've had the whip handle over the debt markets and they've had the whip handle over many other markets. Some people will be knowing exactly what I'm referring to if I mention precious metals. And once you start getting forces that are blasting the straitjacket they put on the financial system for all this duration to hold on to the lie, and the tide eventually comes for all those badly built homes on the beach sand, you know there's going to be a washout and the bad stuff's going to be taken away. And that's going to, as part of that collapse, lead to the unleashment potentially in due course of gold and silver. Now, are they going to be happy and let that trade up? No, they might stop the clock, freeze frame, reset, and just do a lockstep reval and come out and say, gold's 100K in what currently is the dollar at this point. But first you'll have problem, reaction, solution, riots in the streets, 3 months of this and that, whatever. And we're going to have a new currency and it's going to have X% of it gold. And it'll be, tokenized or whatever, and all them mod cons that they're very keen to bring in on the digital prison side will also come in. But the Fed and the cartel losing control over the debt markets is a good thing in a way. You've got to let this unwinding process happen because it'll unleash the precious metals.
Regarding market fundamentals, FrancisHunt emphasizes the need for proactive wealth protection as Western nations face economic instability. He warns of potential gold confiscation and aggressive measures by debt-laden governments to strip wealth. Hunt advises diversifying holdings across jurisdictions, particularly in BRICS or Global South nations, and securing assets like precious metals in multiple formats. The BRICS Plus group, which consists of emerging economies led by China and Russia, has expressed concern about U.S. sanctions and has called for reforms within existing international institutions. This shift toward diversification away from dollar-centric systems could further contribute to gold's prominence. Investor sentiment also reflects this growing confidence in gold. Speculative interest in gold futures has increased even as central bank purchases have declined. This suggests that retail investors increasingly view gold as a reliable store of value amid global uncertainty. Furthermore, Hunt stresses the importance of preparation, anticipating that orchestrated strategies by elites may target individual wealth. Diversification and foresight are essential for financial survival in the evolving global system. Let's get back to the interview.
Any of the precious metals channels, and some people just got really angry with me for suggesting that they might try that, because I said just buying your gold is not enough. You need to make sure that you've got it in enough countries that there's some degree of arbitrage against one or two states, nation states, doing confiscation and or other tactics. And I could see the Western nations being the most communistic because they're the ones with the most debt that hasn't had the down leg in living standards. They're the most bloated, highest living standard nations. So my personal view is there could be an argument that we eventually end up with black gold, gold that is black market outside the system. And they might issue all kinds of vices, or they'll buy everybody out. They'll make the number so big that everyone will go, all the gold bugs will say, that's it, that's the trade. It's 100,000 an ounce. I got paid out. I got my retirement assured. Time to go buy a Ferrari and a Mac mansion. I don't know. I'd hope that they do the latter. But the force is very common when you're dealing with Bolsheviks, and we are run by the people that led the Bolshevik revolution and the bankers that funded the Bolsheviks, both in America, London, and everywhere else. So they were brutal. They were brutal. They confiscated. There's no reparations. There's none of those chit chats ever taking place. Yeah. So I think you can't be safe enough. And you should have multiple options and expect 9 out of 10 of them to blow up, because they're going to game theory this. The one thing we can't say is that these people are incompetent and stupid. The top line players, they put actors in front of you that look incompetent. I'm sure I always not shake my head when everyone goes how incompetent Yellen is. I'm saying she's doing exactly what she was paid to do by the people she was paid to do it. And it's perfect execution of their plan. Of course, she looks stupid on the surface and she'll go, oh, shucks. I guess we kind of left a little bit of a landmine field for you old Trump guys. But let's be clear that this is orchestrated and planned and has been in the coming for a long, long time. So they will have game theoried people like you and I, and with questions like that, which you had. So there's no amount of preparation that won't be enough, but start anyway. Don't let that nullify you. But I say to everyone in the West, you should have a place outside of the Western nations, a BRICS or a Grand South, whatever they call it, location. And you should have PMs and other things in a safe place there. Ideally, a property of interest that's yours, ideally held in a limited company, a foundation, or a trust, and some personal holdings elsewhere to at least have some. If you take the number of people, this is my feeling, they're going to go so far to make sure they strip everybody's wealth. They don't have to, they just have to get 99%. If you're in the top 1%, you've A, built a fair amount of wealth, you've B, got multiple properties outside of the West included, and they're in limited companies, foundation structures, and you've got a spread of precious metals. They're not going to specifically come after FrancisHunt just to make sure they get the last rat in the barn when they're burning the barn down. They know I'm going to be running into that field and disappearing for all hell. They've done their job. So I think for every level you go up by diversifying your likelihood of survival, and I'm talking about your wealth survival and your personal survival, that's going to ensure that your good existence and happy retirement. You'll be a rich slave in the plantation.
Despite the complexity of long-term price predictions, there are different scenarios and long-term price forecasts for gold from 2030 to 2050. Those range from gold reaching $10,000 per ounce, replacing the US dollar alongside Bitcoin, and even the scenario of the world running out of gold by 2050, faced with growing demand. With US debt levels projected to hit unprecedented highs, could gold's role as a store of value and potential anchor for future reserve currencies redefine its importance in the global financial system? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.